And here's what transpired in court earlier today. Manyi's counsel argued that acting Judge Dippenaar has a conflict of interest and must recuse herself. But Wierzicka's lawyer says judges could only recuse themselves if there's substantial reason. Manyi says the acting judge and Magdalene Wierzicka's counsel from the same group of chambers, but arguing for the applicant, David Utterholder, says that collegiality exists between counsels from the same bar association, and that doesn't impact the conduct in court. And Manyi's counsel, Ngwalane, says the acting judge is Utterholder's junior and may defer to her senior counsel, but Utterholder insisted there is no case that has been made for the recusal. And the row started over Wierzicka's comments in an interview on CNBC Africa, where she offered to pay President Jacob Zuma to step down. And tweeting the link of the interview, Mzwanele Manyi said it was financial terrorism and must be investigated. Wierzicka wants the court to direct Manyi to issue an unconditional apology and a retraction on social media. Manyi called it an attempt to muzzle alternate views using financial muscle. Wierzicka's company, Signia, has 174 billion rand in assets under management. And now let's listen into the comment from Signia's CEO that started it all. And this link was reposted by Mzwanele Manyi when reposts of 2 billion rand being offered to the president started doing the rounds.
Absolutely. I would offer him as much money as he wishes to have. I would offer him every immunity under the sun, because I think that the damage that can be done to this country and to this economy in a very short period of time is so much greater than any amount of money that he could possibly want to live out his years.
And here are some of the arguments before court. Wierzicka says Manyi is targeting her because she spoke against President Jacob Zuma and state capture. But Manyi says he's only resisting endeavors to have a democratically elected president bought off. And the Signia CEO says Manyi's statement seeks to resuscitate a racial divides. And Manyi argues that it's the applicant who is objectifying black people as commodities to be bought and sold. Wierzicka alleges that Manyi's post amounts to defamation, harassment and hate speech. Manyi says the view that the president should be offered money to step down is the worst form of racial profiling. Wierzicka claims that the statement from Manyi seeks to stifle her and her constitutional rights. But Manyi counters that. He says Wierzicka, who has the financial power to vary views, to accord him her own. And Wierzicka believes Manyi's posts are insidiously and an attempt to threaten, intimidate and silence her. And Manyi argues that there is no credible instance of harm or threat to harm as a direct result of the tweets. He says there's nothing in the statement that is reasonably capable of inciting violence or threat of violence. Wierzicka says harassment by Manyi has made her hire security to protect her from threats, but Manyi suggests that Wierzicka must proceed against those threatening her on Twitter. And he says some of her fears are derived from unknown people whispering threatening messages among themselves. And joining us on the line, Phapano Pasha is a PFF spokesperson, and Dr. Nwaro Okonkwo is a legal expert. Joining us in studio, Mosiri Tsiane, South African Liberty Foundation chairperson. Good evening to all our guests, and thank you so much for joining us. Has there been a breach here on the constitutional right of freedom of expression on the side of the complainant?
Basically, that is left for the court to decide, says there is an interdict to that effect. Primarily, I think what Wierzicka is trying to say is that Manyi should be mindful of the statements he makes regarding her person. She looks at it from a point that it becomes irreparable harm and reputational issue to her, which is detrimental to her as an individual. But I think within the context of what Manyi has treated, I don't see things that found to be a bit defaming. Remember, Manyi has what we call constitutional right to elect. And it becomes a bit spurious as well as inciting to an individual who respects that constituency vote. Now, if he voted for the incumbent president to be his president, and somebody tweets for whatever reason, and says he or she is willing to offer money, it becomes an insult and slap to the individual concerned. So that forms the basis of the response and reaction from Manyi.
All right, let's get a view from the Progressive Professional Forum, and we have Phapano Pasha, the spokesperson. Good evening to you, Phapano, and thanks so much for joining us. Just your view in that this matter, which essentially should have remained in the helm of social media, has now made its way to court with the claims of defamation, of character, incitement of violence, etc. What's your view?
Good evening, Cindy. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Look, I think there's history behind this case beyond the tweets. If you have been following Vizinka, you would be aware that she's been in the forefront of regime change. Beyond what she said, buying off the president, she has indicated that we need a new president. There needs to be change. So from her side, with her financial muscles, it's mainly bullying beyond anything else. Beyond the fact that she's actually infringing on journalist Manyi freedom, right to freedom of speech. What she's basically doing here is just showing off financial muscles. And by the way, the money that she has made, it's mainly from the PIC, and that's mainly black money. So, you know, there are various issues at hand here. But it's just mainly bullying from, you know, a very rich woman who's mainly accumulated money through the PIC, and mainly black money, as I indicated.
All right, just stay on the line. Let's get a view from Mosiri Tsiane whether this is economic terrorism, as Mr. Mzwanele Manyi has alluded to.
Yes, I think what we have a situation where people in general will use their monies to influence any other disease. One would say that, you know, justice belongs to those that have money. It can't be right. Whether you have it or you don't have it, we're looking at somebody who has taken over what we can call a vendor takeover of the AN7, who needs all the support that he needs. But you would have bullying around that is happening from people who perceive themselves to have money and who therefore must usher out a situation where they say that justice belongs to those who have money and nothing else but terrorism in all forms against South Africans, in particular against Jimmy. That's the situation that we're having now. We're having a system that is going to be abused. Our justice system is being abused by people whom, at all instances and at large, make sure that everything that you say against them is perceived to be fueling racial violence. You can't have an expression anymore. The freedom of expression is no more there. If you say something, people will say, no, but this is an insult against me. But it's easy, on the other hand, to make such insults on the newspapers. It's easy for people to make all kinds of allegations against an individual.
Just hold the line. Let's just unpack what constitutes economic terrorism, especially if it's made, the offers made, you know, to give all sorts of other concessions to a president for him to step down, including amnesty. What exactly constitutes economic terrorism, Mr. Okonkwa?
Basically, a terrorist is an individual that has a mindset of, you know, turning a nation to its own become and core in terms of overthrowing. When you talk about economic terrorism, it stems from the fact that an individual or group of individuals has the financial capacity to finance the overthrow of a government illegally. And that's where money was coming in from the statement Wizeka made. Why, if this statement was made in the UK, the United States of America, or most developed economy, they would subpoena her to come and explain what she meant by that content. So let's not take things away for granted. You cannot, should not ever say, no matter the leadership, there are processes, procedures to effect that. And that's what the DA has brought on and off okay, for an impeachment or an inquiry. You cannot say it's laughable, it's mockery to an individual who has been elected by majority of South Africa that you are willing to give money for him to step aside because of the damages he's done. No, that's uncalled for.
Let's just, from the PFF, Papano, we also know that Mzwanele Manyi is the leader there. In how all of this will then impact on his business dealings, or are you of the view that this case would be a pristine opportunity to prove once and for all that democracy needs to be protected, and that regardless of the money that you have or opinion you hold of the leadership, there are indeed processes, and everybody has, you know, we with the responsibilities or the rights, there's also responsibilities.
Indeed, Cindy. As the PPF, we have taken a decision that we will be rallying behind our president, Mzwanele Manyi. And as my fellow panelists have indicated, it is an indictment that you would have an individual who wants, you know, to mock the majority of South Africans who took a decision to elect a leader. You know, it's a sad indictment, and perhaps it calls on a mission for many of us who voted the ANC into power, you know, to start mobilizing against, these people who utilize money to influence those who might have opposing views. What they know, the likes of Visvenki, is that if there's anyone who opposes their view, they can go to court, and they can use the media which they own. So they use all these avenues, you know, to muzzle those who might have an alternative view. By the way, even though she might have said that she's going to pay off the sitting president, you know, the allegations, for example, that she makes, they have never been tested. But here you find this woman with all the financial backing, who's telling South Africans who voted for their president that she's willing to pay the president off. I mean, it's a mockery to our democracy, and we cannot just await, you know, say that there's a court proceeding which is taking place, that the justice system must take its course. We must also, you know, be very afraid and be very vigilant to say that these few individuals, a minority, by the way, who hold the economy of the country at ransom, they can dictate, you know, even to the sitting president, what should be done.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks indeed for joining us. Much appreciated. We have Papano Pasha, the Progressive Professionals Forum spokesperson. Dr. Nwaro Okonkwa is a legal expert joining us in studio. Mosiri Tsiane is the chairperson of the South African Liberty Foundation joining us on the phone line. And thanks to you at home as well. You're welcome to join us on social media to vent this matter out. A court was adjourned today. Proceedings brought to a halt. We'll pick up tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning. We'll bring you the details of that particular trial. And as mentioned, in my view, it's something that shouldn't necessarily have made it to court, whatever happens on social media. But as we'll have it in our democracy, anything is possible.